Well, Winnie, welcome to our program. This is such an honor because we met about 10 years ago, I think.
Around that time.
Around that time. And it was very interesting meeting because you came to me and the gentleman who introduced you, you work for that organization, right, as a student. So how was it? What was your journey to Canada?
Oh, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am very honored to be here. My journey, I was working there as not really a student. I had just moved here from Kamloops.
Right.
And I was starting my life in Vancouver. So then I was trying to do my paperwork and all that stuff. And then he said, oh, I know a good immigration lawyer. And then he introduced us.
Okay.
That's how I met you,
Well,
I think in 2015. So we make 10 years today.
Well, we have to celebrate that one.
Yes.
Hey, fantastic. So, Kamloops, and you have absolutely extremely beautiful British accent. Where you picked that up?
I was going to say on the streets, but no. I grew up in London.
You grew up in London.
Yes.
Well, that explains, yeah.
Yes, I grew up in London, but I've moved around a lot, and my originality is from Sudan.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've got that Arabic accent mixed with all of this. So sometimes it's very hard to pick my accent.
Yeah.
But yes, that's where my accent's from. And
But
then
it's beautiful and sexy. That tells everything. So, okay, you spent 7 years in London,
Yes.
and this is the center of the universe. At least used to be. And speaking of London, you moved to Kamloops.
Yes.
That transition, I mean, wow! It's like a lot to handle by itself.
Yes.
Like, was it there any shock or in transition?
There was. You know, the beauty about, they say when you're young,
Yeah.
you just make decisions without being scared. That was the beauty of
Right.
it. I was in my early 20s.
Right.
I wanted something different, and I wanted to do my third degree. And so the program I wanted was only in Thomson Rivers University.
Right.
So I went to Kamloops, but I really didn't understand what Kamloops was until I got to Kamloops. And then
And?
the culture shock happened.
Culture shock.
A very small town. Everywhere is close. It's just 5 minutes by bus.
Right,
And so coming
right.
from the heart of London
No
straight
traffic.
to that, no traffic. Yeah, so it was massive shock for me.
Right.
And then I came in the dead of winter as well.
Oh.
So you can
Okay.
imagine the snow. It was crazy.
No,
for
I can
me.
imagine the snow, but I cannot imagine your shock from snow.
For the
well, it's
snow.
Kamloops. It's, for people who don't know, it's interior of BC, which is very snowy in the winter and bloody cold.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from London, UK to Kamloops, BC, and I bet you have many funny stories. What would be the most, well, some funny stories, if I may ask?
I think the one that comes to mind and stands out for me is now around summertime, I wanted to go get my hair washed and I wanted sunscreen. And so I went to at the time it was one of the big stores in Kamloops, and I asked the lady for sunscreen, and she's like, oh, I don't think black people use sunscreen. We don't have sunscreen for black people. That was one of the shocks,
Yeah.
because in London you just walk into a store
Yeah.
and you can find that.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to get my hair washed as well, because I was tired of doing my own hair. Sometimes
Yeah.
you want that self-care where someone does things for you.
Yes.
And so I walked to this salon and the lady said, I don't know how to wash your hair. How do you wash your hair? And I told her, how do you take a bath? It's pretty much the same thing. But those kind of stories kind of stand out for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, it's not like cultural shock for you, but cultural shock for people who met you at the
Yes.
time because they were not used to
Seeing
this-
people like me.
Yes, which put you in a very distinct position. I remember that time, and it wasn't that rare when I heard this thought, I would say, when we work in communities and we work across communities from Africa, Caribbean, whatever we can help at the time. We were very deeply involved in communities, still do some work, but not on a level of that extent. Like we had a non-profit society, we help newcomers and we help volunteers. And honestly speaking, if I had to count, like, let's say people, I'm not saying black because people can come from anywhere in the world with black skin color, but I'm talking about like African community from certain countries, and you're originally from Sudan, so that was different then. I can probably count on my hands. It's enough how many people of color we actually had. And then we went to 2015, 16, everything changed. Of course, we have different groups growing massively. That's interesting. So what brought you from, well, I think you graduated and then you moved to Vancouver.
So I graduated and the opportunities in Kamloops was not there. You know, again, small town.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone, so it was one of those things where like someone has got to recommend you. Even when a job is advertised, it was already given to someone else, so I think it was just a formality's sake.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see myself thriving or growing in Kamloops, so I had the option of going to Toronto or coming to Vancouver. But I preferred Vancouver because the weather was pretty much close to London.
Yeah.
The rain, the grayness.
Well, that's good for people who come in from Britain, because Ireland for that matter.
Yeah.
Because some people complain about rain, but it's not that
I
rainy
love the
as.
rain.
Me
I
too.
love the rain. I enjoy the rain. I'm not a fan of snow and this kind of cold. No,
Yeah.
I'm okay with the rain.
Oh, rain is good. Like people
Yes.
say in London, it's just a matter of proper clothes, right? Like your
Exactly.
raincoat and you're fine. You
You're
walk
good
in the rain, you dance in the rain. So
Even the umbrella, you know, you buy
Yeah.
different kinds of umbrellas. It's a fashion statement
exactly.
now, right?
And
I
some of
do-
them very bright and make
Yes.
your life better. That's true. Okay, so
Yeah.
you moved to Vancouver and you definitely found yourself closer to London by spirit, or is Vancouver different from London?
Vancouver is different from London. Despite the weather being similar, the people in Vancouver are different.
Why do you think is that?
I find people in London more friendly. Maybe
Really?
because I grew up there, I don't know, but people in Vancouver is very cliquey. Making friends in Vancouver is hard, and I'm not the only person that has said that. I've heard it from different immigrant women. A lot of people say if you come here as a student, it's a lot easier because you went to school with certain people, but I went to school with people from all over the world in Kamloops, and then eventually everyone just went back home. So I lost most of my friends because they went back home. I did keep in touch with a few of them, but you know, distance and all of that.
Yeah.
But I find Vancouver very cliquey, and it's just not even for friendships, but even dating. People talk about how it's very hard to date in Vancouver, and so that's the difference with, you know, the difference between London and Vancouver, that cliquiness. In London, people compliment you even down the road. Someone says, hey, you're smelling good. I love your fragrance, love your tie, or like your outfit. But in Vancouver...
Maybe I'm special, but people compliment my ties all the time.
I don't get compliments. I don't get compliments. You know, just walking down the street, like everyone's so busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I find Vancouver's not very friendly.
So in that regard, Vancouver is closer to, let's say, New York than than London.
But you know, I went to New York and I love New York. I found people in New York more friendly, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
maybe it
very-
just depends on...
It is very interesting, unique rather experience, because normally people in Vancouver don't think it's unfriendly. It's just kind of cautious. People always on the run, but sometimes they just probably too polite to interact with each other, because that's what I personally think.
Right.
Because if you, sometimes we're way too polite.
Right.
If I see the beautiful woman walking by and I want to say, you look lovely today, probably she will be offended. Because it's unfair, right? Like, she is beautiful and I want to compliment, right? And when I say that, and I dare to say that, oh my God, you cannot imagine, well, you probably do, you're a beautiful, young, sexy woman, but what I'm saying is, if you have a compliment like that, 99%, and I'm not doing this often, but 99% smile and relax, and they feel appreciated.
You make somebody's day too.
Exactly. And I'm not doing this intentionally, for God's sake, but what I'm saying is, maybe it's all about natural hesitation and kind of this political correctness, all this nonsense. It's just absurd in my view, because people have to talk to each other if they want to communicate, and replacing this with formalities. Well, sometimes people call London stuffy, but apparently you had some other experience. So, moving to Vancouver, you found yourself anyway, and you grew into professional, but also what I learned from you, our stories together, we shared some community help. You very vivid volunteer
Yes.
Can you give us example of your volunteer work? Who you helping? Who you technically targeting in your volunteer work?
So I volunteer avidly with Black women and immigrant women, just
Is
because
there many of those?
there is many
Okay.
immigrant women in Vancouver that are feeling lost. They're feeling out of place. That
Right.
sense of belonging is not there.
Yeah.
So I work with a group of other women as well, and different organizations that will help women with that. And then Black women. As a Black woman, I looked for places where I can just be myself as
Yeah.
a Black woman without having to have the second personality.
Wow. Okay.
And it was tough. And so finding Black Women Connect Vancouver, for me to be a part of them,
Yeah.
a board member with them,
Yeah.
and just, you know, branching into even helping the younger girls who are
Right.
going through racism in school and
Right.
being bullied, and mentoring them to have that mental
Oh,
strength.
it's such a great, honorable
Yeah.
duty you took on yourself. It's just amazing, Winnie. So helping girls, if you can share, how many girls you actually helping, like
Into-
sponsor or helper, mentor?
Yeah, so I do mentor 3 girls at
Mentor,
the moment.
yes.
So one of them is 17. I started mentoring her when she was 15. So it's been 2 years of being
Okay.
together. And I was just speaking to her mom last year. The mom was telling me how the girl has really changed, her confidence levels have gone up. And it's very nice for me to hear that. I don't do this for money or anything. It's
Of
just
course.
something I wished I had when I was growing up as well.
Right.
So it's nice to hear that. And then there's a 15-year-old as well that I'm mentoring. And I have another one who is 14 at the moment.
So do you see yourself in them, or you're just trying to help them to grow into something who you are right now? What's your approach to mentoring?
Sometimes I try not to project, because most times we project ourselves into other people because we maybe didn't live that life.
Yeah.
But I listen and I learn so much from them. So sometimes I see myself in them, and sometimes I see very different people.
Yeah.
And the times have really changed. They're very brilliant young girls. The things they think about, when I was that age, I wasn't thinking about that.
Of course.
Yeah, so just seeing that, and you know, working with Black Women Connect Vancouver and coming up with this conference for Black girls called Empowered
Right.
Black Girls.
Right.
And when we started in 2020, there was only 8 girls that attended. It was COVID time. And as of last year, we had 60 girls.
Wow.
It's been
Amazing.
amazing because
That's like a prairie fire, what people say in the prairies. That's amazing.
yeah, and you know, like
Right.
people are getting to know us now. Companies are sponsoring, so it has been really, really just an eye opener to know that this is actually something that is needed out there, and I'm very happy because it's all organic for me.
Yes.
It's, even the mentoring, I don't go out and pick the girls. It's organic relationship
Yeah.
where it just
Whatever
starts on
comes.
its own, yes, and then we
Yeah.
do that, yeah.
Sometimes when we ask God for strength, God sends us difficult people and we're getting stronger, right? So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So working in the community, helping and exposing your personality, reflecting your personality on other people, helping them shine and be better, it's very honorable task. What else keeping you alive? Like, do you feel lonely sometimes? Because sometimes I feel like you homesick, or maybe just what immigrants going through. Tell me your feelings,
Yeah,
if I may.
Yeah, yes, the loneliness is there. I think there's always that part of us that we, as an immigrant, you leave behind.
Right.
And so the loneliness comes from time to time.
Yeah.
And, you know, you feel like, oh, I'm missing out on so much. And now with social media, we have it out there. You're seeing your friends, you know, in the UK, like somebody just had a baby or they've had a baby shower. Like, you know, they try to include you where they have like online baby shower. You can join us on Zoom, but it's still not the same. You know, you're missing milestones. You have your siblings somewhere else graduating. You're missing that. Because again, tickets are not cheap and these are long flights. And we are not employers, we're employees, so we have like maybe 2 weeks a year for vacation.
Yep.
So you can't really take all of that. And so that's another thing, like you find a lot of immigrants, every time they take their vacations, they're not traveling to a new place, they're going back home.
Yes.
Because they have people to see back home.
Of course.
Which
Catch
is
up.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, when you compare yourselves to people who were born here, they've traveled to maybe 16 countries in like an interval of two years or 3 years. But you're using all your vacations to go back home because that's where your heart is. So immigration is tough.
Yes.
It's beautiful, but it's also tough. And
right.
There's the loneliness that kicks in. There's that feeling of you're missing out. And
right.
And I've also known, working with the immigrant women as well, when I go to the events and I hear like a lot of them have gone through depression, and it's now one of those things where people say you can't be an immigrant in Canada and not go through depression. At least every immigrant person has gone through a phase of depression. I went through depression as well, and I think
it
this was
different magnitudes.
Different magnitudes, because I came here as a student, and I can't imagine how tough it is for people now who are coming here. Like, you have already established yourself back home.
Yes.
You have a career, and then you come here as a lawyer, and you're told you can't practice as a lawyer, and now you have to find an entry-level job. You've got a family. I can only imagine how tough it is. But so immigration, there is that sadness, there's loneliness, there's that missing out. It's tough. It's beautiful, but it's tough.
Well, it's very realistic view of immigration, because sometimes people not only culturally shocked but emotionally shocked, and the recipe for that is probably in finding yourself immersed in daily activities, some kind of very positive routine that makes your life meaningful, I guess, and helping others is one of those recipes. I really appreciate you mentioned that. So interesting. Why don't we have this tradition talking about guests' opinion or advice, how to help others who are about to move to Canada. Let's say you're back in London, you're sitting in your favorite pub, you're having a cup of tea, and you just enjoy the party, and you met someone who just said, "Oh, you're from Canada. Can you tell me how it is? And I'm moving there. I got my papers, but I'm moving in a month. What do I need to know? What do I need to do?"
I will tell them, find the right resources.
Right.
And when you get to Canada,
and thanks God now, compared to your time, it's more
out there.
I mean, out there. Yeah.
There's resources for immigrant people. I recently even saw one for men, because most times it's women everywhere. But I recently saw one where there's a guy that actually focuses on men and helps them and all that. So build your community.
Yes.
Find that support system, because this is your reservoir. When you get to that point where it becomes really hard, this is where you go to drag from. But I would also be very realistic and not just tell them it's all roses and ponies and it's really happiness. No, there are days where you will cry so much, and there are days where it's very, very tough, but then it's a beautiful thing. Once you find your purpose, you find your good support system, you have that meaning that you're looking for. And we all have reasons why we immigrated. So at the end of the day, you've got to go back to that reason, and you'll be okay. But
it's pretty much like anchor that you keeping you intact and healthy and sane. And it's interesting, you touched that very interesting point. You have to know why you're moving, because in our line of work, in my line of work, I definitely coming across this opinion. Sometimes people ask, "Dr. Alex, tell me why I should move to Canada." My answer is always, you shouldn't if you don't know. But you have to know not why you're moving here. You have to know why you're moving from where you are. Because without positively assessing that, it will be very hard. It will be like everything, the whole universe is against you, and this is very tough. But you're doing great job helping others to settle, and such a great point to finish our conversation.
Thank you
very much, Winnie, for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Such a great story.
You can't talk a Winnie story without Alex, because Alex has been part of my journey for the past 10 years. So this year we make 10 years, and I'm
and
very
I'm happy
honored.
to be in that position. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much,
much.
Winnie. Thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank
me,
you.
Alex.
Thank you very
Thank
much.